Hey, folks. Welcome to our first episode of Hello Mondays, debuting on Tuesdays, our new podcast. Oh, right. This is a YouTube AMA. My bad. Welcome to the Kadena Eco YouTube AMA. We're talking about some of the initial grants cohort that went out last week. And we'd love to answer any and all questions that community and folks listening in have. So please feel free as we're getting started, as we're talking, to post a comment on YouTube, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, or wherever you may be watching. And we'll make sure in the second half of the presentation to get to some of those questions. But briefly, I want to give a quick introduction for myself, and I'll pass over to Dan to give an introduction for himself. We'll give a quick update about Kadena Eco. We'll talk a little bit about some insights and patterns that we've seen with the grants and with upcoming cohorts for those that are currently in application cycles. And then we'll talk a little bit about each of the individual projects that received a grant in this past cohort, and we'll wrap up by taking questions from the community. So really excited to talk more about everything Kadena Eco, and this grants program. So by brief way of background, my name is Tyler Benster. I'm the tech adoption lead at Kadena Eco. I actually started getting involved in Kadena back in 2017, wearing a venture capital hat with Azimuth Ventures investing in Kadena. And then more recently in the past year, given the huge growth in the ecosystem, came on board to help administer the $100 million grants program and to work closely with Dan, Joel, Francesco, and the rest of the team in terms of growing Kadena Eco and supporting our ecosystem as much as possible. So my favorite time of the day is when I get to spend time talking with the builders, and my second favorite time is to give updates and chat about everything that's going on at Kadena Eco. It's a ton that's going on, and even a ton since last time we chatted here. So really excited to get more into it.
Hey everybody, my name is Dan Wiggins. I'm on the Kadena Eco partnerships team. I've been working very closely with a number of the companies on the list that we're going to chat about today, as well as the people who have submitted applications who we haven't yet introduced. Joined Kadena in Q2 of this year, and it's been a super fun ride. On the Kadena Eco team, I work with a wide range of folks from folks on grants, a little bit of business development and partnerships, and then my specific focus is on gaming.
Right on. So I want to give a quick update on Kadena Eco and also give some context and coloration. We sometimes get questions about what's the difference between Kadena Eco and Kadena. So Kadena is of course, the layer one blockchain, and in particular, when we say Kadena, we often refer to the core team that is working on the blockchain. So this is a very developer-heavy team. This is Stuart Popejoy and Will Martino and Doug Beardsley, and there's a huge team of engineers that are working diligently every day to provide updates to Chainweaver, to provide updates to Chainweb itself, to the software that's used for running the nodes, for operating the blockchain, and writing a lot of the contributions for the standards. Something I'll point out is that Kadena is, of course, decentralized, and that there's a process for Kadena improvement protocols, KIPs. So for those that are interested in our developers, be sure and check out on GitHub. Those are always open for suggestions. Kadena Eco is a relatively new effort here at Kadena, which now basically encompasses all the biz dev that used to happen at Kadena Core. So Kadena Eco is the arm that is now administering the grants program. We're spinning up processes to run investments into the ecosystem, working on developing labs and incubating companies. Kadena Eco has been hiring like crazy, as is Kadena Core. And Kadena Eco is really this entity that's meant to celebrate, to support, to foster community, and to make sure that we are offering the best building experience that we possibly can for those that are developing new projects in Web3. So if you are a builder or you are crypto curious, we'd love to hear from you. Please feel free to always get in touch. You can slide into DMs. You can write us at Kadena email addresses. You can, of course, apply for a grant. But we're pretty easy to get a hold of, and we love chatting with Kadena projects. So don't be shy. We're always delighted to hear about what you're up to and to support what you're building.
Yep. So we want to spend a little bit of time talking about the specific grants that are in this first cohort, a little bit about the backgrounds of the teams and why we chose them. But maybe I wanted to first start and take a quick step back and talk about sort of the actual application and screening process. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to assess if the team has the right set of skills, drive, experience, and temperament to build something which is durable and useful for the Kadena ecosystem. We got a lot of applications. Maybe I'll start and talk a little bit about like when we're looking or reviewing an application, what do we look for? So the basic screening process is, can a team build what they purport to want to build? We see lots of presentations, but if you look at the funnel from like presentation to actually writing code, it's a pretty big drop off. Oftentimes we receive applications and there isn't anybody technical on the team. This is not a knock if you're not technical. I'm a non-technical boy living in a technical world, but ultimately we are trying to find people who are trying to build things for the ecosystem. So if you're a non-technical, builder, you need to ultimately be working with someone who is going to be writing packed code. The second thing that we look for is, are the teams actually familiar with Kadena? We get a lot of what I'm going to call quasi-blind submissions. Sometimes it feels like it's I heard there was free money available. I love having conversations with prospective grantees who are familiar with Kadena and Pact. I don't have to explain that we're proof of work, that we're not Cardano or Cosmos, or have questions about EVM. But yeah, so doing your homework and actually trying to think why Kadena is useful for your particular application that you're building is super helpful. We do a tech evaluation for all of our grantees. I guess the quick feedback here is, this is from one of our engineers, is like bullshitting is far worse than saying I don't know, which is fair. When we look at applications, experience in writing smart contracts gets you to the front of the line. If you've written and deployed something already in Pact, you get to cut the line. Other things that people can do, asking smart questions in Discord or Stack Overflow, it's thumbs up. Thinking about using this line example, like participating in Discord is kind of like getting to know the bouncer at a nightclub on a first names basis. It can be a double-edged sword. We also have folks who sometimes ask not the best questions that have either been previously answered. So there is some nuance on being involved there. But we do love people to be engaged and participating in the community, and we do sort of monitor and are aware of who's helping or not. So how you stand out as a grant application. So build a thing in Pact and have an idea of building something that somebody else would want to use. Convince at least one other human to work with you. And if your project is your primary focus, you probably have a pretty good chance. And we're happy to provide feedback. If on why not. I think one of the things that I often refer back to is we like lines, not dots, right? What I mean by that is we'll have a conversation with someone, and this is actually many of the current grantees, right? We have a conversation with someone, and they say, hey, we're going to build this thing, and we check in with them like a month later, and they're still building the thing. Or they said that they were going to hire a front engineer, and they hired a front engineer. They said that they were going to deploy on testnet, they deployed on testnet. So, sometimes we like to sort of monitor the progress of grantees. So some of our conversations are sort of ongoing. It's love what you're working on, but we just want to see are you going to continue to work on this, or is this just sort of an opportunistic sort of like, hey, we saw an online form. So that's a little bit about our grants process. Tyler, do you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, that was a really wonderful summary. And I think one of the things I like about what Dan just said is he's giving a very transparent viewpoint as to our own internal discussions. We really want to see the highest quality grant applications as possible. We have funds to disperse, and the more high quality applications we have, the more applications we're going to give grants to. So that's a really exciting place to be in. I think that one thing I'd like to build on is, in particular, when it comes to seeing that progress, that momentum is, I think, the most critical asset that any project or startup has. And when you see a project that has some early momentum, it doesn't have to be huge, but you have a little bit of early momentum and you see that start to build and build and build, that gets us really excited, because ultimately we want to give grants to projects and organizations and people that are going to ultimately have a way to make this project self-sustaining, self-sufficient. Another flaw we sometimes see is we see some projects that will apply and they'll even be technically quite sophisticated, but they won't really have a model for how the project can be sort of self-sufficient, and it might sort of perpetually need grants to sustain itself. And so I think that something you'll see in the grant cohort that we describe upcoming is that there's a lot of core infrastructure that ultimately will become, I think, a very exciting key cornerstone of the Kadena Eco and all the ecosystem efforts. So, Dan, if it's okay with you, maybe we can jump into talking about some of the specific grantees.
Yep. Yeah. So we've bucketed the grants into infrastructure, developer, tools, and education, and utility NFTs. The first grantee in the infrastructure category is Lago Finance. You guys may have heard of Lago in some of our other AMAs, but Lago Finance was started by Sergio and Matt. They're building what is foundational DeFi infrastructure, including an Ethereum bridge and a Kadena native stablecoin. When we were chatting with the team, we really liked their vision of developing a trustless alternative to USDC. They had a sensible roadmap, and one of the things that I'm most encouraged by is they're already shipping products. The two founders have been in crypto for multiple years, and they are serial entrepreneurs. And when we were looking at the infrastructure needs for the Kadena Eco, we sort of looked at what do we need at Kadena to have sort of a sort of at parity experience for other compared to other ecosystems for DeFi. And so we needed a DEX. So there's KD Swap, there's CADEX. We need a stable coin, so that's Lago, oracles, and lending, which is we've also made a grant to Calend, which we'll talk about next. But Tyler, anything to add about Lago?
Yeah, a few things. So, well, first of all, just a meta comment for those that are listening. If you have projects that pertain to a specific project, questions that pertain to a specific project, please feel free to ask them. And we'll try and get to them in the section. And I know we already have a few great questions about specific to applying for grants and overall. So we'll get to those after we give the project walkthrough. But I just echo Dan's point about seeing how quickly Lago is actually building and deploying and just shipping code is freaking amazing. So, as of yesterday, you can now go on CADEX and swap KDA for KW USDC, Kadena Wrap USDC. Like, that's pretty sweet. I think that we're starting to see this increase in speed of progress that's going to be enabled in part by all these ecosystem projects working and collaborating together. And that's something that we're really happy to help facilitate, but also is happening just organically. And so seeing how much Lago has in a very short period of time been able to integrate and collaborate with other ecosystem projects is, I think, super exciting. And I think exactly the type of thing that that really helps you stand out too as a grantee is if you come in applying for a grant and you've already started to put all this effort together in terms of engaging with other community ecosystem projects and like building out those collaborations, that's something that shows, wow, you've really done your homework. And beyond that, you're going to walk in the door and start running. So I think Lago is a great exemplar project in terms of how to do kind of a grant application and that initial few months of the project exactly right.
Yep. Yeah. So switching gears to Calend. So Gaurav, Himanshu, and Kun and the rest of the team are building a decentralized lending and borrowing protocol with algorithmically set interest rates based upon supply and demand. There are a couple other examples of this in the market, but what we liked about Calend was their vision of building in the very near term a protocol that is inspired by some of the best of the current generation of borrowing and lending protocols. So lending in crypto it's been an interesting couple of months with the likes of Celsius and BlockFi, Voyager. But I think what's important to understand is those are centralized, not decentralized, and so the likes of Compound, Aave have done fine during this recent market turbulence, and so we're excited about Calend. Borrowing and lending are absolutely critical for any sort of successful DeFi ecosystem, and actually, I think any sort of banking or traditional finance ecosystem. So we're excited. It's an engineering heavy team that's very well suited to solving the problems that they're trying to solve. They've been building in crypto for multiple years, from security, wallets, and now in DeFi. They're very active in the Stanford blockchain and entrepreneurship communities. And they have a couple exits under their belt. So we're super excited about Calend, and you'll be hearing a lot more from them in the coming weeks.
Yeah, Calend's a really kick-ass team. I've spent some time at Stanford doing a PhD in neuroscience, and I've had a chance to get together with Calend on campus multiple times, talk through their strategy around the lending platform. They have very creative ideas, both in terms of the tokenomics and just the economics game theory side of things. And I think they're really building out a best-in-class platform. And I think what's also very exciting about Calend is now that there's quite a few tokens that are listed and tradable on KD Swap, on CADX, on ASwap. There's several DeFi exchanges now where you can trade a whole host of projects. I think that lending is going to be another piece of key infrastructure that's going to help take some of those projects and some of the integration of different tokens and DeFi with swaps. Adding in that lending component is, I think, a key piece of infrastructure that'll be really, really exciting. We've also seen a few questions on our chat about lending, rather, I should say, about yield or staking. So, for example, this question from Pawan Kumar about how about KDA staking? Well, of course, Kadena is proof of work. So proof of work does not need staking in order for validators to be incentivized. We instead have miners that are mining blocks and including transactions. But I would highlight that lending, like with the swaps, is going to be another opportunity for KDA holders to find yield opportunities for their KDA and potentially for other tokens too. So that'll be one exciting aspect of lending for the community.
Yep. So going back to the list of companies, I believe Tyler, I put your name next to the next one. Electron Labs.
Electron Labs. So some of us may have been at the AMA last week for Electron Labs. Or was it 2 weeks ago? Wow, time flies. But in any case, Electron Labs is a pretty incredible zero-knowledge technology company that is bringing horizontal scaling and on-chain privacy to Kadena. So Electron Labs and ZK, along with the particular implementation of ZK snarks, if these words sound like total jargon to you, please go back and check out our AMA. We did a pretty in-depth dive into ZK and ZK snarks. But in brief, zero knowledge is about using cryptographic and mathematical principles to allow code and transactions to execute in a way that's privacy preserving. So one can validate that, for example, someone has more than 100 KDA in their possession without revealing what their exact account or wallet is. So there becomes ways of doing aspects where DeFi and project developers in Web3 can start to allow users to interact with applications in a way that people are validated and qualified, but not de-anonymized. So I think that as we look at what's happening in crypto over the next 5 years, seeing the implications of Monero-like privacy, but on more mainstream blockchains that have more robust smart contract languages is going to be something that's be very, very exciting. And with Electron Labs' help, we expect that Kadena will be at the frontier of this. So I think that it's a really, really exciting grant, exciting collaboration. And I think there's going to be a lot more to come. And definitely go back and listen to Garvit, who spoke really, really highly and intelligibly about ZK and ZK snarks. So I think this is going to be really exciting to see how Kadena can help push the frontier of ZK and build in a robust and fairly seamless developer experience so that projects building on Kadena will be able to use ZK and ZK snarks without needing to be crazy math PhD experts in cryptography. So we expect that Kadena, with this collaboration with Electron Labs, will bring ZK to the masses.
Awesome. Related to some of the other infrastructure, can you talk about Unmarshal?
Yeah, definitely. So Unmarshal is a multi-chain data infrastructure offering that simplifies access to DeFi, NFT, and metaverse data. In particular, Unmarshal has this focus on built-in composability and sustainability. And I think that's really important for a data provider to ensure that this data is in a format that's useful, that can be easily combined with other data. So if you need to combine data from multiple blockchains, or if you need to combine data, you're running a website that's monitoring transactions, I think that Unmarshal is going to provide this really critical data indexing protocol that will allow developers that need seamless access to on-chain data for DeFi applications to get that in a straightforward fashion. And I think the why here is also important to highlight. It allows for better tooling and resources for builders to access on-chain data. And that access to on-chain data has historically been a bit of a hurdle in that the APIs and interfaces for how you access on-chain data maybe requires you running your own node and monitoring events that are coming through on the blockchain, and then writing a bunch of custom code to try and get access to those events and parsing a lot of JSON. And it's a little bit of a mess. One can do it, takes a bit of work. So we expect that with Unmarshal and with this grant, that it'll become a lot easier for folks that are trying to build applications that require consuming on-chain data to use these APIs that Unmarshal will provide for Kadena and allow Unmarshal to do the indexing service for you, so you can just focus on building your application.
Yep. Yeah. For anybody who's building on Kadena, I'd very much encourage you to check out Unmarshal. Whether you be, somebody we haven't spoken with, maybe one of the grantees that is on this list is listening. They built some really cool stuff, and what I really like about it is oftentimes there's sort of a predisposition to sort of recreate the wheel. They've already built the wheel, so I would just encourage you, if you're going to recreate a wheel, borrow three others. So I think I've totally messed up that analogy or idiom, but anyways, check them out. They're great. So now we're actually going to talk about something pretty unique, which is physical infrastructure, or actual products that you can hold in your hand. Can you tell us a little bit about Crank?
Yeah. So Crank was one of, I think, the most delightful surprises in the grant applications. So Crank, for those that aren't familiar, is a builder of a distributed wireless network that provides coverage for Internet of Things devices such as smart meters and GPS trackers. And so when we got this application from Peter and we sat down and chatted with them, we were initially a little bit confused because we saw these milestones that he was proposing, and we're like, wow, those seem really far out. And then I went on to Chainweaver and started perusing smart contracts deployed in the blockchain, and I was like, holy crap, this guy's already deployed the proof of concept. He's already built the MVP. He's already actually built the thing. And not only that, I went on his the website and was like, wait, he's already selling hardware, and he's built hardware. He's built these LoRa wireless hotspots and he's already sold a few of them. And so it was just this mind-blowing experience. It was like, wow, normally we'd be giving a grant for someone to basically build out all of those things that when Peter had applied for a grant, he had effectively already built the core of the project. So I think that was, a great example of how someone can totally stand out. We literally looked at the application just among the list of all the other applications. And then as we dove in, we were immediately impressed by how he'd already shipped packed. It was on the blockchain. He had a proof of concept, had done no marketing, had built out hardware, and had a very creative idea for how to build a next generation helium effectively built on Kadena. So with sort of the advantages of having a robust layer one, and that way he can focus on building out the components and the infrastructure that pertains to more of how do you incentivize and construct a distributed wireless network. So it's still an early stage project. We're going to have a lot more to talk about in the future about Crank. And I know that the word has slowly been leaking out already as people have kind of piled into that Discord. But early stage, super exciting, and really, really excited to support that and see where it goes from here. Peter is a great builder and someone we're very proud to have in our ecosystem.
Yep. Okay. Switching gears, developer tools and education. So we've heard a lot from the community on this. There's frequently a request for could we have better documentation? How do I do this thing? Is there a tutorial? We hear you, and so we're actually very excited about the next set of grants. These are some of the sort of OG builders in the Kadena community. Some of them are prolific in terms of the projects. So the first project I want to talk about is Hypercent. This is Andre, Alex, and Andre. AAA. Sorry, maybe I'm amusing only for myself, but they don't need introductions. They have the IDO platform. They're working on an NFT marketplace. They have great packed experience, and as they built out additional functionality on their platform, they're going to be helping build out some documentation for other developers. And I think it's a great opportunity for people to learn from some of the best who are currently building. The next one is Katie Launch and Katie Swap. This is Jermaine and Jerome. I think it's interesting that Hypercent's three founders have letters that their first name all starts with the same letter. Same thing with Katie Launch.
We got a AAA team, we got a J&J team, that's great.
Yep. And so they have an IDO platform, a launch pad, and they're also working on an NFT marketplace. They're absolutely prolific, and what we love about them is many of the things that they built, they sort of looked at and they didn't exist, and so they actually built the things that they needed to accomplish. And I think that is that's just badass. Tyler, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that everyone here at Kadena Eco has just huge appreciation for all the amazing work being done by Hypercent and Katie Launch. Both those teams, you look back at what happened last year, 2021, with some of the crazy build and excitement around Kadena. And I think that Hypercent and Katie Launch deserve a lot of credit in terms of helping folks, on Twitter and in crypto realize, holy crap, there are so many cool projects that are in early stages of building on Kadena that we need launch pads, that we need to be able to have ways to support IDOs and ICOs. And, I think that it's really amazing to have some of these, decentralized alternatives to the centralized processes that sometimes are frustrating folks. And so, just huge applause to both those groups and teams. Dan and I are looking at grant applications all the time, and we're constantly, just absolutely alternating between delight and euphoria and just utter dismay at how many applications we have and how many good applications there are. It sometimes feels like a task that's too big to be undertaking for a small team, and the other times it seems like, holy crap, this ecosystem and community is punching way above our weight, and this is freaking amazing. And I just highlight that Hypercent and Katie Launch really saw this, I think, months before a lot of others did, that there was going to be such an appetite and so many projects building that we need to have these launch pads in place. So super appreciate not just the launch pad work, but now all the other work that's being done on swaps and on marketplaces for Marmalade. These teams are really going above and beyond and doing amazing things.
Yep. And just looking at one of the comments, I think I may have gotten one of their names wrong. It's Jermaine and Daniello, actually. So I apologize. I live in Telegram, and sometimes I don't always connect actual names to Telegram handles. So I apologize if I got that wrong. The next company is Eucalyptus Labs. Eucalyptus Labs. They are freaking awesome. I actually had the opportunity to connect with Kobe, who is one of the co-founders of Eucalyptus last week in Chicago. I hate to say this for metaverse enthusiasts, but cyberspace is never going to replace face-to-face. So Eucalyptus is multifaceted. They are working on shipping products in a couple of different areas, from developer UX and infrastructure. They're also working on I believe it's the Koala wallet. Yeah, one of the things that really stood out about Eucalyptus was that the majority of the team came from CoinMe, which was a wallet company, but they all like each other. They have all worked with each other for numerous years within crypto, have gone through at least one cycle together, and they wanted to work together again. And so for us, that is one of the things that we look for. Like it's companies often have more runway and more opportunity than they might think, but that really goes into whether or not the people want to continue to work together. And so they're super excited about each other and excited about Kadena. So we're very excited to be supporting them with a grant. Tyler, do you have anything to add on Eucalyptus?
Yeah, I'll just say that I saw Eucalyptus Labs demo this past week in Chicago for the new wallet, and oh my God, is this thing beautiful! I'm a user of a bunch of wallets, from MetaMask to Phantom to X Wallet to Chainweaver, and I think that what's pretty exciting with Eucalyptus Lab is that across all blockchain ecosystems I've seen, it's a best-in-class mobile wallet. And they're taking an approach that isn't just, slapping in some cringy web browser wrapped in another application that lets you sort of intercept requests. They're really integrating in Kadena ecosystem in a really core way and with a really cool, slick, beautiful UI UX. And so I think it's going to be super, super exciting to see Eucalyptus Labs come to fruition. And Kobe is also just a delightful guy, and really enjoyed meeting him, and have full confidence that they're going to deliver something that's really special and exciting and best in class, not just for Kadena, but best in class across, I think, Web3.
Yep. Switching gears, utility NFTs. I know this is something that Tyler is near and dear to his heart. Can you tell us a little bit about the database of native assets, or sometimes DNA?
Yeah, absolutely. So the database of native assets, this is Adam, Abraham, and Douglas. So if you missed that AMA from maybe about a month ago, definitely go check it out. We did a deep dive into everything DNA, but they're effectively building a token-based bridge between the physical and the digital worlds. So creators can mint a branded DNA token that can prove a product's provenance and authenticity, reducing counterfeiting risk, allowing for tracking of physical objects on the blockchain. And as for why, I think they were an obvious choice for Grant, given that they were the earliest builder on Marmalade. They've been building on Kadena and learning about Marmalade and Pax since last year. They're one of the first NFT projects to build on Kadena. And I think we also particularly like that they're providing this utility-based infrastructure for how NFTs can eat the world. Francesco in Chicago made a remark about how, if you think about what NFT, like non-fungible, means, non-fungible is actually most things in the world. Like, most things are not fungible. We have sure, we have money, which is fungible in some sense, but even one chair to another may be in different conditions, or it's a different object in a different space. And so I think this idea of saying, well, actually NFTs, in terms of how we're currently using them to describe and capture elements of the world, is really quite limited at the moment. And looking at how we allow for core infrastructure to help NFTs then allow us to manipulate real world objects in some capacity in the blockchain, I think is pretty interesting and enticing. And we're definitely not done in terms of what we're looking at and what we're going to be supporting on the NFT front for grant cohorts. And you can expect to see more news for the second cohort in terms of NFT projects. I think why DNA made it into this first cohort is in particular because they're building out a piece that we conceive as core infrastructure, and that's pretty badass.
Yep. So I think looking at our list of grantees, I think that's the list. So would love to encourage, and there's a couple of questions which we can cover, but would love to encourage the audience to ask any questions about either specific grantees that and we'll answer them if we can, or about the Kadena Eco or grants program. We'd love to turn it over to the audience.
Perfect. I'll throw up a question here in a second, but yeah, please go ahead and ask away. I also have a few questions and discussion points around what are some of the qualities of an ideal project. So we'll maybe intersperse between some of those questions and some community questions. First up, Dan, wanted to throw this one at you from Jules. What are you looking for if the gaming NFT project applies for a grant? Will having a working proof of concept increase the chances of being selected? When's a good time to apply?
Yep. Yeah. So what are you looking for in a gaming project? So one, if you're working on a grant project and you have a proof of concept, you just email me directly, dan.wiggins, WIGGINS, @kadena.io. I will get back to you. Having a proof of concept means different things in the gaming industry. What I would probably try to understand, is it fun, right? So, games by their very nature need to be fun. And so is the proof of concept fun? I'd also try to want to understand a little bit more about, what is the roadmap in terms of how do they go from, point A to point B. One of the things that is very prevalent in the sort of Web3 gaming world is this, sort of NFT pre-sale, and then maybe we hope that there's a game in 18 to 24 months. I'm a little bit less enthusiastic about that style of funding projects. I mean, I'm not sure how many of those are actually going to see the light. So I really want to understand who are the people making it, why are they making it, where they are with the proof of concept, and sort of what are the steps between now and actually getting something into a consumer's hands.
Right on. I'll just take this quick question from Jason Smith. End user chain management is confusing. Is our company working on a solution so end user does not need to care which chain their tokens are on? Great question. So there's some effort being done by the Kadena core team. Doug Beardsley has demoed. I don't know if it's been officially called IntelliSend or some variant of Wallet Connect or what if the name has settled, but has demoed a pretty cool wallet that demonstrates an API and protocol for how to load balance sending of money across different chains. So that's something that there's some folks on the Kadena core team that are working on. But also I think there's an opportunity here for grantees and projects in the ecosystem to help come up with abstractions that can allow people to sort of not need to pay attention to what chain they're on and just sort of interact. So I think that as time goes on, we expect that even though Kadena itself is this braided multi-chain architecture, that we hope that the user experience and the user interface will drive more and more towards a layperson not needing to know about the chains. But I would say that this is also a challenge and something that can require a lot more eyes and manpower. So anyone that's out there that's interested in working on this problem, it's something that we're aware of as a user experience challenge and something that we'd love to improve. So definitely welcome grant applications in this domain. We have some community shout outs here, just for fun here. We got Potato saying, hype baby. Next OpenSea, love to see that community enthusiasm. Also, there's someone that's hustling pretty hard, so I'm going to always acknowledge the hustle. Love to see it. Juan Manuel Hurtado is pitching his project. We're exploring an opportunity to build an SDK to enable Elixir laying developers to run Kadena smart contracts and IoT devices, to do Web3 development. Is that a project that may succeed in this first cohort? So first cohort has been announced, but second cohort definitely would consider something along these lines. Given the IoT connection, we also have Peter here from Crank, so you might want to give Peter a quick ring and see if he has any thoughts or suggestions. But I think that it's clear that blockchain and crypto are going to slowly interact with more and more of the world, and it does seem like IoT devices might be next up. So sounds interesting. Would love to learn more. Please feel free to get in touch, talk to people in the community, and we'll see where things go.
Here, I'll grab a question. Do you anticipate there will be the same amount of projects announced in Cohort Wave 2? Don't have a crystal ball, but the idea is to have each cohort be approximately the same size. It could be 5, 7, 9. We don't have a specific target in mind. We're doing the cohort sort of methodology because it allows us to sort of evaluate companies sort of like next to each other, but there's also some sort of like batch processing that we do in terms of sort of planning and working with companies and sort of getting spun up. So we hope to do a similar type of announcement in Q4 with approximately the same number of companies.
Yeah, and I'd also emphasize that for those that are currently in the grant application cycle, if you haven't heard back from us, that means that you're still being considered. That said, you're always welcome to ping us and write us an email and ask for a quick status update or ask to hop on a call or catch up. We're always delighted to engage with community, and anyone that's put in a grant application we can see is devoting time to the Kadena ecosystem and devoting time to the project. And our role is ultimately to nurture and support as many project and as many ecosystem companies as we possibly can. So I think that cohort 2 is going to be really exciting, especially as we've been able to, with cohort 1, help support projects that are building out some core infrastructure that will then enable a lot of the important DeFi applications. But we will also be able, I think, with cohort 2 to potentially take a few more risks and to be able to get into some other projects that are really, I think, on the bleeding edge of what's possible in blockchain. And we're very excited to effectively support both projects that we think are going to be sure, stable bets, but also support projects that potentially are higher risk but higher reward in terms of the impact that they can have. Hey, Dan, I wanted to ask you a question about some qualities of an ideal project. So we've been talking a little bit about what can a prospective grant applicant do to help themselves stand out. We know that asking good technical questions on Stack Overflow or engaging on Discord and helping other folks building on Pact is useful. While asking a question on Twitter that demonstrates a lack of technical knowledge is maybe a signal in a different direction. But I was wondering if you could just speak for a second about, from your perspective, what might be some qualities of an ideal project?
Yeah, it's I don't know if it's a rubric or a matrix. It's a little bit hard, but let me sort of try to wrap it in a couple words. I guess like the first thing that we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out are people serious, right? And committed and in for real. And sometimes that's an intangible, right? But like I take people a lot more seriously, right, if they have familiarized themselves with Kadena, right? They are familiar with the fact that we have X chains in production. They're familiar with Pact, and they have taken a look and they understand that it is like Lisp. And they might ask like, wait, but what about recursion, right? They've actually like listened to an AMA, right? It's so are they serious? Have they done their homework? And that I think for me that's sort of like the first filter, right? Because if you think about it, right, at Kadena Eco we spend a lot of time, energy, invest dollars to try to make companies successful. And so like if you're want to talk about a grant application but you actually haven't done any homework on who it is you're talking to or the things that they care about, or just the fundamental technology that you are saying that you want to go build on, it's difficult. So I would start there. That's a big area of focus for us, is just trying to figure out who's real or
not. This question isn't particular to the grants per se, but when Ledger, I always like to answer questions that are prevalent in community. So Ledger is being worked on. It's not weeks away. It's months away. It's not years away. It's months away. I think Ledger is something that's really, really critical to be done right. So both our own internal processes have a very high standard in order to build a hardware wallet that is super robust that people are going to depend on. It's most important to get it right the first time than to get it out as fast as possible. Ledger itself also has a very long review process. And so once that code and such is over at Ledger, there will potentially be opportunities for community to help advocate for that implementation to get across the line as quickly as possible. So yeah, we'll be giving updates as we have them, but being worked on. It's definitely closer, and it's probably some months away. There's a few other good questions here that have been rolling in, and we're sort of getting towards the end of our time here. So maybe we'll just take one or two more questions and then wrap up. So first, we have a question from Neil. How close are you to onboarding second cohort? Dan, do you want to take that one?
Yeah. So it's a work in progress. So it's not perfectly linear, right? So from the general timeline is from intro call to there's intro call, tech diligence, and probably another 2 or 3 conversations about the business before talking about the actual grant application. The entire process is 4 to 6 weeks, and there are generally people within this sort of process. If we're looking at the second cohort, there's there are folks at various stages in the process, and I think that there's 2 or 3 companies that will most likely be moving forward, and then like the rest of there's other people who are sort of in the pipeline that will probably come through by the end.
Yep, fantastic. Brief question: will there be any news about new employees? So Joel teased out that there's a new advisor that recently came on board to Kadena Eco this past week. That's really exciting, and you can expect to hear more about that in the future. There's also been some new technical hires that aren't ready to be announced yet, but people getting on board and starting to build, which we're really, really stoked and excited about. Another team question, is Paul Sue still on the team? So we were actually just hanging out with Paul last week at the Web3 Investment Summit in Chicago, where Paul, Decasonic, and Kadena helped sponsor this fairly big event that was targeted at really, really sort of high-end investors and investment community. So doing our part to help bring on board the whales to help support ecosystem. So Paul's been focused on some of these high touch, high impact folks behind the scenes that we'll be seeing the dividends of in the future. And then we'll take maybe this final question from Luke. What do you think will be the biggest challenge in continuing to develop and grow the Kadena ecosystem?
That's a spicy one. Tyler, do you want to take a stab at that one?
Sure, definitely. So I think the biggest challenge is always around how do we make the building experience on Kadena as positive as possible, and how do we build an ecosystem where it's possible to create $1 billion business. I think that to me is the mandate when I think about our role here is how do we allow for this ecosystem, this economic engine to be created that people can literally build $1 billion business on top of the platform. And that's a challenge, right? That's not a small undertaking. And so I think it's important to recognize that as we build out this ecosystem community, that that's the level of accomplishment and success that we're looking at. We're looking at Kadena and Kadena Eco not as being a company or a project that we want to succeed. We're looking at it as being an entire economy that we're helping to kickstart and to help fuel the fire. And so I think it's important to recognize that that's a big undertaking, and that it's not something that we can do alone. That really we play a small role, which is to say, how do we help the builders succeed? How do we facilitate through grants, through support, through marketing assistance? Really offering a lot more services than a traditional venture capital fund would, in order to help promote these companies, while at the same time, not taking arm and a share and allowing all these projects to independently develop, and not trying to exert control over what should ultimately be decentralized and community-owned projects. So our mandate is to walk that tightrope as quickly as possible and actually to sprint across it. And I think that so far, as we've seen over the past few months, momentum is pretty high right now. We're not doing everything perfectly. There's more that we can improve in terms of the grants pipeline. There's more we can improve in terms of community outreach, in terms of engaging with folks. But I think that one of the reasons why we were really valuing these AMAs is seeing all the great questions and suggestions from community. It helps identify what's important. I'll give an example. I was talking with a project that was building on Marmalade NFTs, and they raised a very interesting critique, which was there's a certain aspect of cross-chain transfers that was difficult for NFTs. And I mentioned that, and he talked about with Stuart, and within a month the team had already implemented exactly how to do that for the base protocol, and that'll be coming out in the forthcoming weeks. So I think that when we are in these spaces and when we're talking to community, we really do listen. We don't respond to every tweet, we don't respond to every comment, but we read the lion's share of them. And everyone on the team is very focused on providing, as the best building experience that we possibly can. And so I think that, this big challenge is also a very centering razor, philosophically speaking, for what we need and can focus on. And we are focusing on our energy and all of our energy in terms of how can we, as a team of people, help support this ecosystem, help support this economic engine that will ultimately allow projects to become billion-dollar scale. So we hope that this will continue to grow and develop the ecosystem into an environment that employs thousands, if not tens of thousands of people. And we hope that this effort and this assistance that we offer will help projects get to a point where people are interacting with the blockchain on a daily, on a weekly, on a monthly basis. And I think that that's going to be a really, really exciting future, and that's worth the risk.
Awesome. I know that we're a little bit over time. Any last questions that you want to grab, Tyler?
Man, there was a couple more, but we are over time. Maybe Dan, I'll throw one last one at you to kind of wrap up.
Oh. What would I like to say about the future of Kadena? Oh man, that's a complicated one. So all I can say is I've actually never been more excited about contributing at Kadena. The things that I like is this. I think this first cohort of grantees is sort of an example of that, right? We sort of started when we were thinking about the grants program of how do we enable builders on Kadena, but then also we had a little bit more of a structured thesis about how do we build out some basic infrastructure, and we were able to attract and recruit truly world-class builders to build out things like stable coins, lending, where we have various teams working on dexes, right? So it's everything's coming together, right? And it's starting to work, and so that's that's personally why I'm very bullish. And I think that the when I look at Kadena, we just have to I don't want to necessarily say more of the same, right? But looking at the last 3 months, despite the overhang and uncertainty from capital markets, inflation, Celsius, et cetera, I've been very encouraged by the progress of the grants program. So that's I don't know if that answers the question perfectly, but that's what I have to say about the future of Kadena.
Right on. Thanks so much, Dan. And thank you everyone for joining us so much. For those that can't get enough Kadena and live content, and especially if you're a builder, make sure to check out Doug's office hours tomorrow, which will be a more technically focused discussion. There's really valuable content there in the past. Next, I just want to give a quick shout out to all of our social media accounts. I got to look at the list here: Twitter, Telegram, Reddit, LinkedIn, YouTube. Be sure to follow some socials on any of those platforms that you engage with. And finally, if you're a builder, be sure to join our Discord channel at discord.io/Kadena. I'd really encourage anyone here that's thinking about applying for a grant to please do so. And we'd love to consider your application for the second grant cohort. If you're a builder, please feel free to get in touch. Stay building. And for everyone here in the community that has been so thoughtfully engaging today, asking questions, attentively listening in, we're so grateful for you. Community is why we're all able to be here. Ultimately, a small group of people build, but a larger group of people use and advocate and evangelize. And those that are tuning in here on a Tuesday morning or evening, depending on where you're in the world, you are part of this key Kadena army, this key group of evangelists. And without you, none of us could be here. So I'm personally very grateful to you and really appreciate everything you do for Kadena, whether it's telling your friends or spreading word on social media or just thoughtfully engaging and giving feedback. Really, it's part of the pleasure of being here is knowing that we have such a great community. So thank you so much, folks.
Awesome. Thank you.